slouching. You ever notice how one small comment can physically shrink you in seconds? That's not insecurity. That's your nervous system hitting an ancient "don't get hurt" button. One moment you're sitting upright, then someone critiques your work. The room goes quiet, and suddenly your shoulders fold in like your body just got bad news before your brain did. And in a way, it did. Because in the animal kingdom, the rule is brutal. Expand to assert, contract to survive. And humans? We're still running that exact same code. In fact, check your shoulders right now. Are they relaxed or slowly starting to roll forward? Yeah, that's not random. When your shoulders round, your head dips, your chest collapses, your body isn't losing confidence, it's switching strategies. Because for most of human history, conflict wasn't awkward, it was fatal. Pick the wrong fight back then, and you weren't just embarrassed, you were dead. Exclusion from the tribe meant being alone in the dark with a predator. Your brain still treats a bad Zoom call like a tiger in the grass. So evolution built a shortcut. Instead of fighting every time tension appeared, you could signal submission visually. Make yourself smaller, lower your profile, reduce threat. Your body was essentially saying, not competing, not challenging, no need to escalate. And the reason this worked so well is because the other person's brain was running the same code. They saw contraction and backed off. Conflict avoided, energy saved, injury prevented. That's the real evolutionary advantage of slouching, not weakness, strategic de-escalation. But here's where it gets interesting, because your body isn't just sending a signal to other people, it's sending one to your own brain. When you collapse, your amygdala, your internal threat detector, registers that you're losing. It locks you into caution mode. But flip that signal, you tap into an ancient dominance code. Expansion. Power pose? We all know how confident people don't just act differently. They take up more space. That's not personality. That's biology interpreting posture as status. Shoulders back, chest open, head level. Across species, that posture means one thing. I'm not easy to challenge. And here's the hidden rule. The more stable you look, the less likely conflict even starts. Because in evolution, the best fight was the one you never had to have. That's the first advantage of expansion. It deters conflict before it begins. But the real shift happens internally. When you expand, your ribcage opens, your breathing deepens, and your visual field widens. This activates proprioception, your brain's way of reading your body to decide how you should feel. And here's the strange part. Your brain trusts that signal. For millions of years, expansion only happened when you were actually safe or in control. So when your body expands now, your brain updates its prediction. Maybe we're not in danger. That's the second advantage. You can change your internal state by changing the signal your body feeds back to your brain. This is where the power pose idea came from. Researchers once thought expansive posture changed hormone levels. More testosterone, less cortisol. That didn't hold up cleanly. But something else did. People who expanded before stressful situations consistently felt more confident and were often judged as more capable, which suggests something simpler is happening. Not hormones. Interpretation. Your brain is constantly asking, based on the signals I'm getting, how safe are we? And posture is one of the loudest signals in the system. So when you expand, you're not faking confidence. You're updating your brain's prediction, and your brain goes, all right, maybe we're okay. Once you start noticing this, it's everywhere. Someone walks into a room upright, then slowly collapses mid-conversation. Their brain just changed its mind about the situation. Someone else starts closed, then gradually opens up. Their nervous system is recalibrating in real time. Threat going down, confidence going up. But posture is just the background noise. The real negotiation, that happens in a fraction of a second. The moment two pairs of eyes lock. Direct eye contact. Two people lock eyes, and something ancient kicks in. Not connection, calculation. Because for most of human history, eye contact wasn't polite. It was risky. Your brain doesn't treat a stare as neutral. It treats it as a question. Are we cooperating or competing? And the wild part is, that decision starts before you're even aware of it. The moment someone holds your gaze a fraction too long, your amygdala activates. Alertness rises. Attention sharpens. Not because something is wrong, but because something might be. Because in the animal world, direct gaze often signals challenge. So your brain evolved a shortcut. Eyes equals intention. But humans did something strange with this system. We made our intentions obvious. Unlike most primates, humans have bright white sclera, the whites of the eyes, which makes our gaze direction incredibly easy to track. Your eyes act like high-contrast arrows, constantly broadcasting where your attention is pointing. Now think about that for a second. In a world full of predators, broadcasting your attention is a liability, unless you're trying to build a tribe. Human eyes aren't built for stealth, they're built for transparency. Because when I can instantly see what you're looking at, we can align attention without speaking. Danger? We both look. Opportunity? We both notice. This ability is called joint attention, and it's one of the foundations of human intelligence. It's what allows groups to think together instead of just exist together. That's the first hidden advantage of eye contact: fast coordination between minds. But here's where it reconnects to status. Because eye contact isn't just about where you're looking, it's about how long you're willing to hold it. Think about the last time you locked eyes with a stranger on the street. Who looked away first? You weren't just being polite. Your brain was solving a million-year-old status equation in about half a second. In primate groups, gaze works like a negotiation system. Dominant individuals hold eye contact longer. Subordinates break it first to signal, "I recognize the hierarchy." It's a peace treaty signed with a blink, not weakness. Risk management. Because holding eye contact says, "I'm not backing down," and breaking it says, "This isn't worth escalating." So every time two people lock eyes, there's a silent exchange happening. Who holds? Who yields? Who decides this goes further or stops here? And most of it happens automatically. But here's where people misread the signal. They think more eye contact equals more confidence. Not exactly. Too little eye contact feels evasive. Too much feels like a challenge, which is why natural conversations have a rhythm. Look, break, look again. Your nervous system is constantly fine-tuning that balance. And when someone breaks that rhythm, staring too long or avoiding your gaze completely, your brain immediately flags it, because now the signal is unclear, and uncertainty is what makes it uncomfortable. But when the eyes get too intense, or the situation gets too stressful, the system starts to leak. Your nervous system reaches for a physical reset button, and more often than not, it goes straight to your face. Nose touching. The moment pressure enters a conversation, the body starts exposing information, and it usually shows up in the smallest movements first. That's not random. That's your nervous system leaking through your skin. Because here's the myth everyone loves. Touch your nose equals you're lying. If that were true, allergy season would look like a global crime spree. But something is happening, just not what people think. When your brain detects pressure, social, emotional, reputational, your sympathetic nervous system activates. Heart rate shifts, attention sharpens. Your body starts preparing for action, and then something subtle happens. Blood flow increases, including inside your nose. That tissue can swell slightly, creating a faint itch or tingling sensation. So when someone touches their nose under pressure, they aren't lying. They're reacting to a physical itch their own amygdala just scratched. It's a micro-reaction to an internal spike in blood flow. But here's where it gets more interesting, because the nose isn't just physical, it's emotional. Your sense of smell has direct connections to the brain's emotional centers, especially the amygdala and hippocampus, which means smell has always been tied to survival. And that's why one emotion keeps showing up around the nose. Disgust. Originally, disgust protected you from contamination, rotten food, disease, poison. But over time, that same system expanded. Now it reacts to social contamination, corruption, betrayal, moral violations. And here's the twist. The system that once saved you from rotten food now activates when you encounter a rotten idea. Your nose reacts to moral contamination the same way it reacts to a bad smell. Think about that face you make when you hear a coworker taking credit for someone else's work. Your nose might wrinkle for just a fraction of a second. Your brain is literally treating that lie like it's a bad smell. But here's the rule that separates amateurs from people who actually understand behavior. One signal means nothing. Humans touch their faces constantly. What matters is pattern and timing. Does it cluster around a topic? Spike after a question? Repeat? Under pressure? Because body language isn't a dictionary. It's a pattern detection system. And once you start seeing it that way, everything changes. Because now you're not asking, what does this mean? You're asking, when does this happen? And what triggered it? But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because while the face is busy leaking stress, the most honest signal in the room isn't what someone does. It's what they stop doing. They break the connection. They look away. And instantly, everyone assumes the wrong thing. Avoiding eye contact. Everyone thinks looking away means one thing. You're hiding something. But biologically, that's not what's happening at all. In many situations, looking away is the smartest move your brain can make. Because in the primate world, a stare isn't connection. It's a challenge. Hold it too long, and you're not being confident. You're escalating. So evolution built a counter signal. Break the gaze, reduce the tension, avoid the risk. Looking away isn't weakness. It's conflict management. Your brain is running a rapid calculation. Is holding this gaze worth what might happen next? And sometimes the answer is no. When a junior employee looks down during a meeting with a CEO, they aren't weak. Their brain is resolving a power imbalance. It's a peace treaty signed with a blink to make sure they stay in the tribe. But there's another layer here. Shame. And shame isn't a flaw. It's a survival tool. It's your brain saying, we made a mistake. Don't let this get us pushed out. So your body follows an ancient script. Head lowers, eyes drop, posture contracts. That movement isn't random. It's a physical apology, a signal that says, I recognize it. I'm not challenging anyone. Because holding eye contact in that moment, that would escalate things. So the gaze drops instead. Not cowardice, damage control. But modern humans complicate this system because for some people, eye contact isn't just that social. It's overwhelming. For an anxious or neurodivergent brain, looking away isn't submission. It's bandwidth management. They're cutting the visual feed just to keep enough processing power for the conversation, which leads to the rule most people get wrong. They looked away is not a conclusion. It's a data point. Because once you stop trying to decode people like a lie detector, you start reading them like a system. And when you do that, something becomes clear. When pressure builds, the system doesn't just shut down, it starts to leak. Signals slip through in small, controlled ways. Tiny movements your brain uses to manage what it doesn't want to show. And one of the most common places that tension goes is the mouth. Because sometimes, instead of saying the thing, you hold it back, and your body handles the rest. Lower lip biting. There's a moment where your brain hits pause right before you say something you'll regret. And in that split second, your mouth takes control. Because your mouth isn't just for speaking. It's a gatekeeper. One of the most nerve-dense areas in your body, directly wired into your emotional control systems. So, when pressure builds, frustration, attraction, the sudden urge to say exactly the wrong thing, your brain faces a choice: express or hold back. And when the risk is high, it chooses restraint. That's where lip biting comes in. It's a physical lock, a way to bolt the door before something dangerous slips out. You're not just biting your lip, you're manually holding your composure together. That's the first layer, control. But there's a second layer happening at the same time, signaling. Lips are strongly tied to health, youth, and attraction cues, which means when attention shifts to the mouth, perception shifts with it. So, in one small gesture, two systems are running at once: regulation and display. And here's why this gets so confusing. To your nervous system, a crush and a crisis look remarkably similar. Both spike your heart rate, both narrow your attention, both activate the same underlying circuits. Which is why the exact same gesture can mean, I'm trying to stay composed, or I'm very interested. And if you read that signal in isolation, you'll get it wrong. Because body language isn't about single gestures. It's about systems, posture, eye contact, facial tension. You don't read the symptom, you read the pattern. And once you see that pattern, something shifts. Because when internal control isn't enough, the body escalates. It stops just containing the emotion. It starts building a wall. It moves from regulation to defense. And that's where one of the most misunderstood signals in human behavior shows up: arms crossing. Crossing arms, right versus left on top. People think crossing your arms means one thing: you're closed off. But your body isn't trying to shut people out. It's trying to protect what matters most. Because right behind your arms is the most valuable real estate in your entire body: your heart, your lungs, major blood vessels. Damage there isn't uncomfortable, it's catastrophic. So across the animal kingdom, when threat appears, bodies follow a simple rule: protect the core, limbs move inward, posture tightens, vital areas get shielded. And humans? We do the exact same thing. Crossed arms are a human shield, an approximately 200 millisecond response to a spike in social pressure, manually covering the parts of you that can't take a hit. But here's where people get it wrong. Because it's not always about external danger. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish cleanly between physical threat and social threat. For most of human history, those were the same. Conflict could turn physical. Rejection could mean losing protection. So today, your body responds to a tense conversation, like it might turn into something worse. That's why arms cross during stress, discomfort, uncertainty, not because you're closed, but because your system is saying, stabilize. And there's another layer most people miss. Crossing your arms isn't just protection. It's also self-soothing, a subtle form of a self-hug. That pressure across your torso can actually help regulate your nervous system, lowering arousal, calming the system down. So you're not just blocking the world out, you're holding yourself together. Now let's address the detail people obsess over. Right arm over left, or left over right. Which arm is on top isn't a personality test. It's a habit. But when someone breaks that habit, when their default crossing pattern suddenly flips under pressure, that's the system signaling a real internal shift. Not because the position changed, but because the state changed. And that brings us to the bigger picture, because none of these signals work alone. Posture, eyes, face, mouth, arms. They are the visible output of an invisible system, a loop of signal to interpretation to adjustment. Your body reads the environment, updates its internal model, and responds in real time. Sometimes it expands, sometimes it contracts, sometimes it leaks, sometimes it protects. But it's always doing the same thing, trying to keep you safe. And once you see that, you stop looking for lies in body language and start seeing survival. Your body isn't working against you. It never was. And if you think body language is powerful, wait until you see what your brain is capable of. Check out the next video.